while AI and robots may be coming over to take over the world, our last sort of frontier is, again, the table between us.
If you've eaten at a restaurant recently, you might have booked your night out on Resy, the only restaurant reservations platform that challenges legacy competitor OpenTable. Founded in 2014 and acquired by American Express in 2019, Resy has become a cornerstone of Amex's reward system, especially following the recent Platinum Card overhaul aimed at younger consumers. To reach Gen Z and millennials, Amex has leaned heavily on Resy's cultural cachet, spotlighting the restaurant industry through campaigns that celebrate dining as community and craft.
Service!
Service! Service! Everything we do!
The mind behind these campaigns is Hannah Kelly, the CMO who joined Resy after a decade at Amex. On this episode of Next to Lead, Hannah discusses her path to Resy, what defines a modern CMO, and how Amex and Resy are shaping the future of dining.
Are you ready to nurture what's next? Reimagine industries to turn bold ambition into the beginning of everything. What's your next brilliant move? McKinsey & Company.
Hannah Kelly, CMO of Resy, thank you so much for joining us for Fortune Next to Lead.
Thank you for having me. Excited to be here.
I'm excited to have you here, a huge diner. You're obviously the CMO of Resy, as I said already. I want to talk first about your career journey and kind of that ascension story. You spent nearly a decade in marketing at American Express before moving to Resy, which Amex obviously owns. I'm curious what convinced you to leave this blue chip brand for a smaller, more entrepreneurial startup of sorts.
It was an easy decision. So prior to being at Resy, I had been at American Express, as you noted, and the role that I had been in was leading our premium benefits in entertainment, events, and dining. And during that time, we saw that dining was a high category of spend, especially with our millennials and Gen Z audiences. And I received a life-changing phone call. I was in that job. My boss called me. I was actually on vacation. And he was like, hey, I know that you and I have been talking a lot about how there's opportunity to really build the same that we have in travel with dining. And I want you to know that as a leadership team at Amex, there's actually been an opportunity to acquire Resy. What do you think? And the answer was a resounding yes. And he was like, great, I want you to take this opportunity and work on this. So prior to close, I actually managed my existing portfolio and team of people doing our day jobs, but then worked directly with the corporate development team on the business case, everything from initial hypotheses on brand, on product, on engineering. And then when we were ultimately able to sell it in and close, I was given the option. Do you want to stay at American Express in a proprietary role? And we can definitely continue to make that happen. Or do you want to go and work at Resy? And I jumped at the opportunity to join and embed as the first American Express member of the Resy leadership team.
So it seems as though you were, first of all, very intentional, I should say, about working through the acquisition of Resy. You clearly played a strong role in helping to shape that deal and see it to fruition. What did you learn about what it takes to integrate a smaller company into a global brand?
Clear purpose definition for customers and the industry and for colleagues. And what is great about Resy is that it was really built to serve its members, its restaurants, and the restaurant industry and community. That's why it was founded in 2014. The founder had seen a real opportunity to create something for restaurants by restaurants that was easy for operators to use and reflective of their brand values. That is what was core and has been core to American Express 175 years later, which is how do we really create a feeling of membership and purpose for the businesses on our platform and for the card members. So in the early days of acquisition, it was easy for us to align with the founder, Ben Leventhal, and our exec team at Amex to say, we want to create a thriving hospitality industry and marry the technology of Resy, the brand of Resy, with the brand and backing of American Express to do that today and then well into the future.
Amex acquired Resy in 2019, if I'm not mistaken. You said you worked very closely on shaping the business case. What was the business case for Amex at the time, and has it changed over the years since?
It's the exact same today, which is seeing where the future of spend is going. So the premise was, how could we create and take the learnings that we had from Amex Travel? We have been a travel agency for decades and recreate that with dining. Resy was exactly that. It was a platform where we saw strong guest growth. We saw strong restaurant growth in the cities where it had started to emerge. And we believe by supercharging that with American Express, keeping the Resy brand as Resy, attracting the best restaurants as possible, we would attract the best guests. And with that, get existing card members and creating even more reason for them to spend and love their American Express card, but also create affinity for prospects. So if you didn't have an American Express card, but you love dining, there is no other option than to get an American Express card.
You're now the marketing chief at Resy. I'm curious how your leadership style has evolved as your responsibilities have also scaled.
Hiring a team and putting clear onus and decision making on the team and giving them the tools to do their job the best as possible. And the second piece is embracing for change and agility. So in the early days of Resy, we closed in 2019. Shortly thereafter, we were hit by COVID. And the restaurant industry, like every industry, was completely decimated because it's an experience economy. It's all about getting people in real life out and dining. And what was interesting about that moment in time is we were about 6+ months into acquisition of Resy and integrating our teams and trying to figure each other out. And through that, COVID kind of shut down all of the noise around who are you, what is my job, what is my role, how are we going to work together? And it caused us to really rally around a single sense of purpose, which is what are we going to do to make sure that we have restaurants on the other side of whatever this pandemic ends up being? How do we make sure that we give people a clear sense of belonging and roles and responsibilities? And then also embrace for change, which was a complete pivot in all of the marketing plans that we had laid, all of the integration plans that we had laid. And while that was a moment of crisis, we had great creativity come out. We had great team bonding come out. And we were really able to empower one another to get to know how each other worked to create something better on the other side. And that is something that I've taken with me even to this day. You know, we've grown from first acquiring Resy in 2019, and then we actually just closed and acquired Talk in November of last year. And we've been integrating those teams. So the one constant is change. The one constant is that we are in a dynamic world, and the two ingredients of making sure that we have clear roles and empowerment of amazing team members and a sense of purpose have really gotten us through it.
Yeah, you said during the pandemic in particular, agility was critical. And, you know, despite the fact that you're obviously working remotely, geographically dispersed, these are new teams, you have to align them, various stakeholders around a shared goal and mission. You really were able to see great creativity come out. Walk me through how you navigated the pandemic. Give me some, for instances, around the creativity that emerged.
So effectively overnight, restaurants were shut down. And they were oftentimes calling us to say, what are you seeing? What are you hearing from American Express, from any of the trade associations that we are a part of? And then even our colleagues were looking like, do I show up for work one day? Should I be logging on? I have now my kids at home. What do I do? And again, that really anchored on us needing to be very clear and deliberate around providing a sense of purpose and clarity for our restaurant partners and for our colleagues. So order business number one was making sure that our colleagues knew that they had a home, they were safe at American Express, and to prioritize their health and well-being. And then the second piece was doing the same for the restaurant community. And what was amazing and inspiring to see from the restaurant community is that we saw a heightened sense of focus on conversations around well-being. So the restaurant industry is quite grueling. It is quite taxing. It can sometimes feel like you're working in a non-for-profit with very slim margins and the workforce that you need to manage and the cost of labor and foods. And during COVID, it caused everybody to check in and say, are you good? And those elements of making sure that the team was taken care of, that our industry was taken care of, really channeled every single decision that we had. So overnight, we waived fees on our platform. We made Resy completely free and cost neutral. The second thing we did is we started to partner and think about COVID-safe ways of dining. I learned during that time that we had a chief medical officer at American Express and spent a lot of time talking to him about how we could stand up outdoor safe dining. And we did just that. We launched a program called our Outdoor Villages. We partnered with 40+ restaurants all around the country to create COVID-safe outdoor dining experiences. We found a yurt dealer.
I didn't know that existed.
We didn't either. We found that during COVID, which was really exciting. Um, and that got us through during that time. So those are lessons again that I just take with me, and hopefully it's not during times of crisis, but in the steady state of business, being really clear around who are we serving, that obsession over our customers, making sure that we are listening at all times. But the first order of business is making sure that we've taken care of the team and the well-being, just as our restaurants are doing the same for their colleagues and employees.
From where you sit, what would you say is the biggest shift for today's marketing chiefs, whether it's around how you work with CEOs, whether it's around data and automation, whether it's around, defining who the consumer is? What's shifted? What's changed about this function in particular?
Being a critical business driver more than ever. I was just on the phone with my CEO this morning. We chat throughout the entire day, and it is my responsibility as the chief marketing officer to understand what is our product vision and our business vision, and to be an active shaper of that. So instead of being someone that is handed that and is like, okay, go market this, actually bringing the insights, bringing the brand, and showing that brand can actually be a driver and differentiator into a future. Two is becoming intimately familiar with the product and engineering. So product know-how and knowledge is critical. And I learned that during a prior role at American Express, where I led the go-to-market for all of the wallet integration. So with Apple, Google, Samsung, this was back in 2014, 2015. The role that marketing was playing was, how do we understand what this new technology means? Adding a card to my phone that I'm then going to tap, is that safe? Making sure that merchants understood the value of that. And really that required me understanding the requirements, the operations, the roadmaps of how to get things done, when marketing could come in. And again, I think marketing had been more on the service and further down the waterfall in terms of getting involved, whereas we are fully upstream. And I think the third piece is having a really clear view at any given time on culture and the external environment, being mindful of what conversations are happening, which conversations should we be participating in, what trends are we seeing in terms of how media is being consumed, what values are being questioned, and how can we help to give a greater sense of meaning and foster a sense of connection, are things that I'm thinking about now.
When you say culture, and you look at the broader media landscape, I'm assuming you're also looking intimately at social media. What role does that play?
Social media is huge. We know that the majority of decisioning on where to eat and where to dine is happening in social. We value editorial, we value guides, we have award-winning editorial from Resy, but we hear time and time again that what colleagues want to know and consumers want to know is where their friends are eating. What's also happening in social is discovery of new brands. So when you think about American Express and Resy, we have marketing budgets, we have marketing teams. What social has opened up is the opportunity for smaller businesses like restaurants who don't have marketing departments to tell their story, to reach new guests, to reach new diners, to connect with members of the industry. And I think that there's a really interesting intersection of dining, technology, and social, and we're going to see more and more of that continue.
On this topic of social media, how are you thinking about influencer marketing and just how effective is it?
Influencer marketing is core to what we do, in that our chefs are influencers. When we think of the strategy and core sort of business case of Resy, we are looking at how do we get the best restaurants on our platform. The reason why is because they have influence over other restaurants in their cities. So when restaurants are looking to decide what booking platform they should align themselves with and the values of operations, they're looking to see where a Mike Solomonov is doing business in Philly. And when he's doing business with Resy and American Express, that's driving a lot of influence and clout for other restaurateurs in the market to make the same decision. And then similarly on the guest side, you want to understand, where are guests going? You saw massive booms when, Taylor Swift, Travis Kelce, where they're dining, and then seeing the overwhelming demand that comes out on the other end. So our job is to make sure that we are harnessing that power. We are putting our restaurateurs on a pedestal. We are using them and their influence and clout to tell their story, to build a better industry, and then hopefully with that, capitalize on where we can help guide discovery and demand for guests.
What do you think the average person doesn't know about what it takes to be a CMO? Are there any misconceptions you think about what this function does?
I think that people think I get to sit and look at pretty pictures and creative all day. And
That's just a sliver of what you do.
and that is just a sliver of what I do. What I'm thinking about are what are our business goals? What are our business targets? And how best can I set up the right team, the right operations, the right budgets to make sure that that is coming into fruition? So it's not about the brand. That's the nice output that we get in terms of the creative, but it's
You
really
think it
about the
would be about the
intention.
brand.
I should correct myself. It's about the brand. It's not about the creative output in and of itself. The creative is a powerful tool in communicating our story and making sure that we are expressing who we are in terms of what we look like, what we feel like, and what we make our consumers feel and our restaurants feel when they engage with us. But the reason why we're able to produce successful creative is because we have clear data and insights around the brand story we want to tell. We have a clear vision of what we want to be in the marketplace today and into the future. And we know how that impacts the data and performance. So it's more of the meat and potatoes than the numbers.
When I think about American Express, just as a consumer, I think of it as the brand as one that is aspirational. The clients as those who are well-heeled. They want more or less a white glove service. I'm currently in a relationship, but when I was dating, there was something about, seeing a partner drop a card to pay, hearing that heavy clink. And so I'm curious whether you also want Resy's brand to align with that kind of very elite branded, very white glove service.
Absolutely, and it
Yeah.
does. And to your point, there's actual like measurable dopamine when somebody drops a card. So you're not crazy. There's science behind that. The elite premium nature of dining and the Resy brand perfectly aligns to the aspirations of what American Express has been and will continue to be into the future. And it's really about reframing what premium means. And that means meeting customers and their expectations where they are. That doesn't just mean $3 signs, $4 signs meals. It could mean a single dollar sign type meal. And the investment in making sure that we deliver that through the right sort of app, the right sort of web experience, and then similarly on the restaurant side through the right sort of table management system are core to what we do. We just refreshed our American Express Platinum card, and as part of that, Resy plays a critical role. We have an embedded $400 annual statement credit, and in layman's terms, we are giving $400 to Platinum card members to spend at any of the 10,000 restaurants on Resy. But what's so unique about that experience is the investment that we put into building out the user experience. So connecting the Resy app to the American Express app and investing in that service that you would expect from American Express as a Platinum card member and pulling that through to really enable Resy. So very much aligned in terms of those values and a core differentiator of American Express and Resy.
Mhm. What's interesting is that you're able to lean into AmEx users' spend data. And I'm curious what you've noticed as it pertains to trends around what motivates people to actually click book to reserve a reservation. What is a motivation? What's a drive-in factor there from a marketing perspective?
The brand cloud of the restaurant, the story, the accolades are there. People are very intentional about where they want to dine. So understanding that someone has created a unique take on Italian American cuisine, like John and Vinny, they've built an incredible brand for their restaurants out in LA. You're now seeing them grow into markets even outside of the states. And really what that investment and that demand is incredible brand, incredible menu, incredible ownable service. Another example would be what we see in New York with Unapologetic Foods and Ronnie Mazumdar and Chintan and team. Sema is one of the top restaurants that we have in the country. And a lot of that is because of the storytelling that they bring onto the plate from Indian cuisine. Indian cuisine is not as well regarded in the Western world as it should be. You see it in places like the UK and London, but why not the States? And they've really helped to transform the perceptions, the rich flavors, the profiles of that. They've even taken it on tour. We've sponsored those tours. So it's about the storytelling, the intention, and the service. And that's what's driving a lot of the demand.
Resy's data presumably lets you spot hotspots early. Do you ever use marketing or editorial to actively create a trend, or are you simply trying to reflect it?
We think about it as trend creation. So we publish a report. It happens at the end of the year, and we project where we're going into the subsequent year. And a lot of that is reflecting some of the trends that we're seeing uniquely from what has been driving demand, menu items, from conversations that we're having with partners, and then we're helping to source, curate, and pull that together into forward-looking, snackable sound bites of what to think about for the following year. So right now we're working on our 2026 report. And a lot of that is, yes, what we're seeing, but also where we think things could be going. And we like to think about it as an opportunity to potentially nudge of what we'd like to see a bit more of.
Well, a perfect follow-up to that question. I mean, how do you balance highlighting what's already popular with actually then influencing where people want to eat?
It's telling the stories that are untold, and making sure that we carve out the time to do that. And some of the examples, especially during like the COVID era, we're doing an entire series on Chinatown. And if you think about the COVID era, there were certainly concerns of xenophobia and concerns of having certain marginalized cuisines maybe not get the love and attention that they needed. We took that as an opportunity to actually shine a light and create more of a dedicated track towards that type of cuisine and that type of culture on our platform. And we use that even to this day. When you go into the Resy app and you look at our Discover tab, we are populating editorial guides that are based on seasonality, based on restaurants that you should know, and then even the collections of how you can search. We've pre-populated what some of those look like as well, all from that exact intention.
You've hinted at this a bit already, but I'd love to delve in just a bit more. How closely do AmEx and Resy work together? Is it a shared brain trust? Do you have separate goals?
Very closely. And the reason why we're successful is because we have dedicated Resy goals. So how do we make sure that we are bringing the best restaurants onto our platform? We are growing and we are measuring ourselves on the health of our network. We are growing and measuring ourselves on the health of the guests that we have and the demand that we're able to share. And the reason why American Express is invested in that is because those restaurants are merchants. Those are merchants that we hope and want to accept American Express and see unique value when they do that. And similarly, the card member opportunity that is there. So making sure that we are efficiently acquiring, efficiently engaging, and engendering the deepest of loyalty and love for American Express with the Gen Z and millennial diners. If those diners love dining, they are on Resy. And it behooves American Express to make sure that we are properly investing in the Resy brand, the right sort of tools, the right sort of operations to get the restaurants on and to bring the guests, because we know the guests will follow the restaurants, to then meet those goals of American Express, which are card acquisition, card engagement, merchant acceptance, and all of the NPS scores that come along with that.
You have this treasure trove of data, both from the Amex side, but also the restaurants that are on your platform. Certainly, diners who are making reservations and just looking at their overall spend. Any interesting or surprising trends that have emerged from that intel?
The need for demand is there. And it reminds me of some of my early days in American Express when I first started at the company. We worked on Small Business Saturday, and that idea germinated from a report that we had done on the mind share of a small business owner. And the number one need was more customers. And to this day, when I look at all of the data and the demand that we're seeing for restaurants, while there's an insatiable demand of getting out and dining, we constantly hear from our restaurants, how do you give me more demand? And that comes into two pieces: quality demand, so higher spending, higher ticket price demand, but then also just more guests. So what is surprising is that while dining has continued to become part of the cultural zeitgeist, you see shows like The Bear popping up on Hulu, and people now saying corner in their homes. There's this need for us to connect that demand with more restaurants and spread the love.
Any trends on the diner side?
Just the insatiable thirst to get out and dine. And we've seen that continue since the end of COVID. What COVID taught us was the importance of human connection. That the first thing that we want to do when we want to celebrate something, we want to reconnect with a friend, is figure out where we're meeting up for coffee or breakfast, or where we're meeting out for dinner. And when that was taken away from people, it really created a void.
You mentioned, at least on the restaurant side, this need for more demand, more customer demand. Given the macroeconomic climate, we're seeing that Americans' paychecks just aren't going as far as they were in previous years. Are you seeing any belt tightening around dine-in, especially for more high-end restaurants?
We are seeing continued growth. The role that we play, though, is making sure that we are highlighting when someone should go out and dine in places that and times that might be unexpected. So, this past year, one great example is that we see a tremendous dip from November and December time period where everybody is out and celebrating to January. Sometimes you can see a noticeable drop in like 30% of revenues for restaurants. Most consumers aren't thinking about that. Most consumers are thinking about, how do I hibernate? How do I start focusing on my well-being, deliver on my New Year's resolution? So we actually jacked that insight and created an entire campaign about the importance of restaurants, the showing the day in the life through a video, and then presenting quickly at the end of that an empty dining room, and talking about the importance of getting out and dining at restaurants during that January and February time period. And we put a bunch of media behind it. We put a bunch of marketing behind it. We did a bunch of editorial. And with that, we saw increased engagement in reservations. And we actually saw increased engagement and leads coming in from prospective restaurants wanting to align themselves with Resy. So making sure that we are really being that advocate and using our data to think about where we can play a role in the health of the industry, the health of our restaurant partners, and that can be looking at the good and the bad of consumer data.
How would you describe your core demographic?
So on the restaurant side, it's the ambitious sort of hospitality owner. So that doesn't mean that they want to necessarily win all the accolades or open many locations. It's that they have a story and they have a business that they want to be able to get out and tell and serve. And then on the diner side, it's really understanding the diner profile who is interested in getting the best dish, getting to the best restaurant, and the best not being designed by like what is getting the most clicks and the most likes, but what is most tasty, what is most unexpected in terms of a story that I should be able to tell. And that's why I think you see the restaurants that are getting the most demand being like an Unapologetic Foods and like a Sema. It's not just about the quality, which is exceptional, of their Indian food. It's the story behind it and the service that you get and that story that comes through the service. And those are the diners that we want, and the diners that we serve are the ones that appreciate that.
Absolutely. Resy is now it's a discovery platform. It's also in many ways a content publisher. Would you call it a tech company? Would you call it a media brand? Would you call it something entirely different?
We are a tech and brand company. And truthfully, at our core, we sell table management systems to restaurants.
Which isn't sexy when you phrase it that way. But it is when you think about dine-in. You think, especially as a New Yorker, going out on a Friday night, that very much is, there's a certain brand around that. But table management, that is what you're selling. But there's a certain appeal to going on Resy and saying, hey, this is going to be date night. There's a brand around that.
Yes. And again, it's exactly what American Express has done with its card. We get restaurants to see the value beyond just our table management system and our software. It has to work. It has to evolve with their operations. That's what we wake up and obsess over out of our product and engineering teams. But it's also being an ally and an advocate for them, which is why we show up at things like the Welcome Conference, why we're a sponsor of so many important trade and philanthropic organizations like Southern Smoke Foundation. So really being able to wrap what we do from a tech perspective in maybe more touchy-feely brand items, as you would classify them. On the consumer side, same thing, making sure that we invest in a slick app, a slick web. We pioneered the notify feature, which was if you didn't see the time or the date that was available, you could hit the notify button and you'll be notified when something comes up. We then pioneered what that exclusive sort of benefit offering looks like for card members and for a premium guest experience with global dining access by Resy, and now with the Resy credit. And all of that is wrapped in editorial guides, launching the Discover tab, where you can now go in beyond a transaction and see, like, I'm headed down to Philly. Where should I go out and eat? Build a list of where I want to go. Those are, yes, product pieces, but they're also brand pieces. They make you feel a certain way. They drive a certain affinity, and they're helping to back and build a better dining experience, both on the restaurant side and on the guest side.
You have this dual customer focus, the restaurants and the guests, as you've already alluded to. Is there ever a time when they have competing priorities?
constantly. So I think there's a shared goal between restaurants and guests, which is they want to be able to serve and be served. But on the guest side, you will see that there's an overwhelming amount of demand for some of the hottest spots. And we want to be able to democratize that and drive that to some of the other spots that you should know. And I think that's where it can be a little bit competitive, where you have amazing restaurants that are out there. They might not have that current buzz or moment, but they are the neighborhood staple. They're why maybe the West Village was put on the map to begin with, which is where the new hotspot is. So that tension of how do you funnel guest demand in a specific place to other comparable, potentially even better places, is something that we think about and try to think of how we can jack that through editorial, through guides, through the right sort of marketing.
This is a perfect sequitur because I know that Resy has taken measures, especially in the past year, to protect against bots and reservation fraud. How are you communicating the steps taken here? And is this important from a consumer POV, from a marketing POV?
Protecting the dining room to ensure that it is democratic is core, not only for restaurants and making sure that we can protect their bottom line, their revenue, their operations, and their desire to serve, but it's also core to the consumer, which is making sure that we all get the chance to dine. And the place that we've invested in is legislation. So we work really closely with our policy team at American Express, and we've seen some really awesome acts passed in New York and in Florida to shut down and protect against bots. And we shout that from the rooftops to our partners, so dedicated communications to our restaurants. We also put that out into the press and into the media. And what's been interesting beyond that is seeing that consumers are interested in that as well, because it shows that we are truly backing the industry and the preservation of the restaurants that we love today and ones that we hope get created tomorrow. And as a diner, that makes you think differently about where you're going to open, which app you're going to open when you want to book. So there's more credit that I think we get on the diner side than we even are aware of.
As you look to the future, where do you see the reservation market heading? And then how is Resy preparing to keep itself, but also its restaurants ahead of those shifts?
The preservation of human connection is all about what the future of hospitality is. We need technology, marketing, brand to come together to make sure that restaurants can focus on service delivery and really standing out there. So while AI and robots may be coming over to take over the world, what is left to say is like our last sort of frontier is, again, the table between us. And I don't see that going away. So with technology coming in, with brand and marketing coming together, and especially for Resy and Talk, where we're thinking about the integration of our tech, our brands, with the backing of American Express, it's how do we use those tools to free up operators' times to innovate in the dining room, around the dining room, so that we can preserve that sense of community. And similarly on the guest side, create these experiences to connect with one another, to form relationships. And that can be relationships with the people that you're dining with, but it can also be with those who are serving you.
How are you leveraging technology?
So we use technology. Obviously, that's the business that we're in. But beyond that, we are looking at data constantly and looking at AI for ways that we can actually better inform and power up our operators' course of business. So most people think about the consumer side around discovery and demand, certainly opportunity there that we're looking at. But what's most exciting to me is how we can use AI and technology to provide better decisioning and insight to our restaurants and operators. So imagine if we could pull a report seamlessly for an operator that says exactly how the night was before, where they have slower turn times, what menu items sold, and provide actionable insights. So we have an advanced analytics tool, and we're spending a lot more time there to think about how we can use AI to make that even stronger.
If a hot restaurant wants to stay exclusive and limit reservations, do you ever have to talk them into more availability, or do you kind of let that scarcity drive the bus?
The restaurant really decides how they
They
want to
do.
manage their
Yeah.
brand and their demand. So some restaurants welcome it, they love it, they like being in the prestige and then the club, and then other restaurants want to be able to serve more people and almost view it as like an inconvenience. And that's where, we've taken measures into our own hands and have spent a lot of times on bots and technology to make sure that we can preserve just core operations. But then we really follow the lead of our restaurants. Again, some love it. Others want to be able to figure out how they can democratize the dining room a bit more.
I think what's so great about Resy is obviously helping restaurants fill empty tables at its core. How do you help restaurants also increase repeat bookings and that lifetime customer value beyond just filling empty seats for particular nights?
American Express has been a huge tool for us in making sure that we drive demand and repeat booking. So first, we launched Global Dining Access by Resy in 2021, and that was really a benefit geared towards our premium audience. And that premium audience consists of the highest quality of diners and those that express a high affinity for dining in terms of going out with repeat transactions and expressing interest to try net new. And that program has exclusive table access. It has priority notify at any of the 10,000 restaurants. And that was just the start. We then saw that there's a need to make sure that we are providing incentive and rational value behind that. And that was what prompted us to launch the Resy credit benefit. So we launched that last year for the first time on Gold. We launched that with our Delta card as well. And then most recently with our newly refreshed Platinum card, which is the richest value offering. So that $400 annual value. And what we've seen is that we've been able to drive $19 million to in-statement credit spend and incentives to New York restaurants alone. So the idea of driving demand and solving that problem is a prime example of where the backing of American Express has allowed us to make a measurable impact for restaurants, but also differentiate.
Absolutely. Well, let's move over to the speed round. If we can jump right into this. So, if you had to bet on one dine-in trend for 2026, what would it be?
Solo dining.
Solo dine-in. Why is that?
People wanting to get out of their homes, sitting at a counter, interacting with a bartender. We see a lot of interest in that.
Could you see Resy using AI to predict the next IT restaurant before the chef even signs a lease?
Yes.
How so?
We know the location, we know the cuisine type, we know the chefs and the operators that have the draw.
If you had to pick the next city that will explode as a food destination, where do you think it'll be?
Philly.
Philly.
And I'm not saying
You're
that
biased.
I know. I'm from Philadelphia. I live there. But in terms of the accolades that we've seen relative to New York, we've gotten them all. And what's been really interesting is to see the Philly Tourism Bureau really back food as a reason for why guests and new visitors are actually coming into the city. So definitely Philly.
You also said that Philly has won the most James Beard Awards. Is it of any city or just more than New York City?
It won more. We had more James Beard nominations than New York City.
Interesting.
So it wasn't out of any city. I just have a healthy tension and competition between my New York-based colleagues and living in Philly.
Let's end with two leadership questions. You said you never imagined that you'd be sitting in the C-suite. What does it take to ascend to the C-suite? Whether it's mindset, whether it's skills, whether it's habits?
Hustle, curiosity, and the ability to connect with humans. You can learn the majority of the skills, but you've got to be able to put the work in, and that's where the hustle comes from. Curiosity, knowing how to ask the questions, and being driven by wanting to learn more, that insatiable desire to figure out what is going on in the marketplace, how that connects into the work that you're doing and your job, and empathy and connection. So technology is here. It's an amazing tool with AI. It makes life a lot easier, but what it does not replace is the ability for us to connect on a human-to-human level. And those three skills of, again, the hustle, the curiosity, and the empathy are really what are going to carry us forward.
As a leader, what keeps you up at night these days?
Focus and prioritization. Making sure that I am very clear with my team on what's most important at a given moment and making sure that they see the connection between those priorities and a sense of purpose. The world is a crazy place right now, and the workplace is an opportunity for us to give people a sense of belonging, a sense of purpose, and the ability to make an impact. We happen to be working in the dining and hospitality sector, which is a place of privilege. We get to wake up and figure out how we can enable others to serve one another.
Very well said. And I think that's a solid place to end. Hannah Kelly, CMO of Resy, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely.